Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for those of you who are here, and welcome to everyone who is watching from your screens. Let's just have a word of prayer. Our Lord and our God, we thank you for Andrews University. We thank you for the opportunity we have to work here, and as we review what happened at the board today, we pray for your blessing and presence in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, now at the moment I can hear a strange echo of myself. I don't know. Okay, I think that's died now, so I think we're okay. All right. So we had good meetings, good board meetings. The most radical thing that happened was that we moved them all away from paper. We went electronic. And this time, because it was completely new, we did provide a few copies of hard copies, which looked like this, rather than big folders. But the board chair told them, any time from now on that you want hard copies, we'll be happy for you to have them. All you have to do is print them out before you come. So the gauntlet has been thrown down. We are moving into the new generation, and we are going electronic with our board. So that's good. We started off, and I'm going to really just focus on today, and by doing that I'll refer back to subcommittees or committees we had earlier on yesterday and on Friday, but I'll do it through today's agenda. Theresa Reeve took our devotional this morning, which was really well done and greatly appreciated. And then we had our consent items, which are just the approval of the minutes, our faculty staff appointments, and our diversity report. That's an annual report that comes out from HR that looks at diversity of students, gender diversity, racial diversity, and also of employees. And you are welcome to find a copy of that. I believe it's posted on the website. It should be up there. You can have a look and see what that has to say. But those items are really just done by assent. We don't go through any of that information, and it includes those who they got promotions. That most of that's passed in June, but a few that they go over, and that all goes through very quickly. So that was that. When we get the information items, and I did my report, and I called it tacking into the headwind. And my focus was, as I said, it's a little bit sobering, but it was really focusing on the national environment that we are working in right now. And I used as the frame for what I talked about an article which is called The Great Enrollment Crash. Students aren't showing up, and it's only going to get worse. And it's a very good article, but a very realistic article looking at what is happening. And one of the first quotes I gave from that article says, "Higher education has fully entered a new structural reality. You'd be naive to believe that most colleges will be able to ride out this unexpected wave as we have previous swells." In other words, the general feeling in higher education is you go up, you go down, and it kind of goes like this. But the current environment, as people look into the future, they look at the birth rates or the rates of those coming into college age. They look at the other stresses in the environment. They're saying this is not an up and down thing. We are really in a deep swell. It's going down and it's staying down. And the question is, what do we do about that? And so I then looked at that within the frame of our Adventist sector, NAD, Adventist schools. Over the last 7 years, the total drop in enrollment over our schools is 14%. The drop in Andrews over that 7-year period is 4%. This year, only 3 institutions did not drop. We were one of them. This is head count. We were one of them. We had an increase of 5 students. Walla Walla had 8 students, and our university in Canada had 12 students. If you add that together, that is 3 of us that had a total of 25 students increase. Everybody else dropped. And the total drop was 2.78%. So that is a significant challenge. So this is now the second year in a row where we have been one of 3 institutions that has not dropped. Right? And even though we feel, we have our challenges, I think the good part of this is that we are as good as we are right now. And that is due to a whole lot of hard work by a lot of people. From our marketing enrollment people to all of the faculty to all of you that in any way interface and present Andrews to other people. So with that focus, I looked at what we are doing, and because what people are saying is basically that you're having to work harder and more intentionally, purely to stand still, right, in the current environment. So we talked about some of the decisions we had been making with some of our programs, how we've been seeking to find the blue ocean and the sweet spot in the marketing, like our More for Less program, how we're trying by being intentionally focused on a few areas and really pushing those areas, how we try to break through the noise of all of the competition that is out there. And then we looked at how we are dealing with a new challenge to us, not completely new, but significantly increased challenge this year, which is that of immigration. And we know that we had a considerably larger number of students that were turned down this year because they could not get visas to come and study. And if that had not happened, we would have had a much stronger increase than we saw. And we are trying to work intentionally with governments and with their connections to U.S. consulate in certain parts of the world to try and turn that. Stephen has just come back from Ghana and also Kenya, where he's had very good conversations that have connected him with the U.S. consulate and governments there and so on. And that's the way we're having to work now, really, to create and respond to some of these enrollment challenges. So that's one. The second challenge I talked about, which is a national challenge, is the headwind of finance. And again, one quote to set the context there. The handwriting was probably on the wall as the national first-year discount rate had already crested the 50% mark. According to the National Association of College and University Business Officers, it was 39% only 10 years ago. And that has been the same for us and the same for our other Adventist schools. What that means over time is that as your discount rate rises, if your tuition does not rise higher than your discount rate rises, what happens is students actually pay less per credit hour. And that is what is happening for us. Students now are paying less per credit hour than they were 5 years ago. In fact, they've paid less every year for the last 5 years. Even though technically our tuition has gone up, the credit hour payment has been less. And it's not just us, it's everybody else. But that, of course, is not good for our budgets when you think about how budgets work. Then I talked about some other issues related to that same shift in the thinking of universities and their fight to get students in enrollment and the way they are kind of undercutting each other financially by offering special deals and other things like that in order to make it work. And we have not been immune to that either. Right? So what can you do on that finance side to, as I say, my title was Tacking into the Headwind. How do we respond to that headwind of finance? And it is increasingly to seek to find that sweet spot with discounts. Very, very, very difficult challenge to try and do. We're getting closer. Manage our cost volatility is another way, and that's one reason why we closed the dairy, because of the volatility. The other huge area of volatility is the medical benefits, and again, we're not alone in that. But that remains a challenge for us. We're trying to find that. And what I put down here is as counteracting being a political pawn. In other words, sometimes you have everyone pushing you in all directions and you start being reactive. And that is not going to solve how do we chart our own course. We need building our endowment base, very, very critical to future stability. But then we have another challenge of two, of course, which is the cost of being in Berrien Springs since 1901. We have building fatigue. And so that is something that continues to be something we have to work with. So those were the kind of things we talked about on finance. And then the last one was the headwind of mission. And the focus of the articles I read on this was the fact that sometimes we confuse our mission with our way of delivering that mission. And that is also a lot of the conversation that is out there, is that, our mission is to be a Seventh-day Adventist institution, obviously, but to deliver education and help people succeed, et cetera, et cetera. You know where our mission tries to take us. But it is not necessarily, we have to do it this way, right? And that is always a challenge in higher education, is confusing the end with the means of getting to the end. And that's where sometimes creativity has to come in. I talked a little bit then also about what I said right at the beginning of the school year when we had the State of the University, about framing the culture of Andrews and the values of employees that really made sure that anyone who came on this campus as well, this is an amazing place to be. Last week, for example, we had a gentleman on campus who had never been here before, and he's a businessman in the US, very successful, originally comes from Vietnam, and just loved us, loved our place, loved who we were, what it was like here. And we're establishing some deeper relationships, which we hope will be helpful to us. So that's really what I focused on, and then we had a good conversation with the board on some of these issues, and just the realities that we are not in an easy place from the point of view of higher education, not just in the Adventist sector, in North America as a whole. But that really we have not been sitting still, and as a campus, all of us have been trying to say, okay, let's stay ahead of the curve. And the fact that we have remained stable with our enrollment for the last 2 years, and we have not been falling, shows that we have been making some very good decisions. We need to keep doing that. If you look at the map for demographics, the red zone, where is it? It's right here. It's Midwest and Northeast. So that just was a kind of sobering conversation, but I think the board appreciated that, and I think they were very responsive to being part of solving problems and helping us frame the future rather than being opposed to what we were trying to do. The provost then gave his report, and his report focused on, it's the annual report that comes from the provost's office, which really says, what are we doing? And looks at key performance indicators, measures of quality. We looked at the two strong positive indicators that came through on our last student satisfaction support in the quality of interactions on the campus and the supportive environment. Quality of interactions that help learning happen, and supportive environments for learning, both very positive indicators that came through on that. We shared that. We looked at our excellent licensure pass rates, the lowest 90%, many in the 100% over the last year, 2 years. It was very good. We looked at our research scores for faculty, the proficiency scores of our students at graduation. This one they really, really liked. In our 2018 alumni survey, 90% of our graduates who graduated in 2012 or 2013, because you look that far out, reported that they were either accepted into graduate school or employed in their own field by 1 year after graduation. That is a very, very good statistic, and something that is a very good story to tell, that our students are coming out and moving into graduation after that 1 year period. We looked at our retention rates, remained very high, 86.9%, so nearly 87% this year. We looked at our graduation rates, which are medium. We looked at our faculty-student ratios, which still remain low. We're still 1 to 10.2. Most institutions are reporting 1 to 12 to 1 to 13. So we're still low there, and that drives some of our pressures in finances too. We looked at our faiths, our service, our health and wellness reports. These are all very, very positive reports across the board from our students about their engagement in those activities. And then we looked at our enrollment figures. Our freshmen were slightly down from last year. Our overall enrollment slightly up. Our undergraduates flipped above graduates again. Last year, remember, graduates flipped slightly above undergraduates, and so on. Final area we looked at in the KPIs was a few financial indicators, and Dr. Arthur talked about our average tuition discounts and showed the line. Our average lecture class size, which is slightly increasing in numbers, really not quite yet at our target. And then looked at the contribution margins, in other words, how our programs are performing on one level. This doesn't mean all the other levels aren't important, but looking at the contributions of different programs and how we can leverage the most positive movements to help support the campus as a whole. That was basically it. That was the provost report. The third report we always have is board education. And this time, this was a joint presentation by Dominique and Michael, and on Made to Thrive and Belong. And they really introduced to the board, it's our wellness plan. They have a nice, if you haven't been up to the Wellness Center now, there's a nice interactive thing there. You can go in and click on it, and it all comes up and tells you what they're looking at. So they shared that with the board, and shared how some of the things that they were doing in both of their areas that support that same Made to Thrive concept. And I think that was well appreciated. After that, we moved into the action items, which really are the reports coming from the various subcommittees of the board. And the first one of those was the audit report. Our audited financial statements, we have a record of having a clean, clear audit, which we had yet again. So that is really good. Our financial, the people that do the audit, they were asked in the subcommittee how many of the institutions you audit get a clean audit. And they said about 1/3 every year. And the fact that we have it year after year after year, that speaks very, very well of our financial office and the efficiency with which they do their work. So our other audit was, which is the policy audit. We had 2 minor items there that we had to correct. The main one was that we had been offered a loan, which everyone said, take. It was part of our loan agreement, but we'd never taken an action of the board to support it. So we had to go back and take an action of the board. But it was minor things, so the audit was very clean, very good, and that was that report. Then we went into our university operations and finance report, and more detail, of course, was given in the finance committee than was given to the full board. But we focused really on 2 things, which is how are we at this year so far, September 2019, and then what are the budget assumptions for next year as we start building our budget. So the good news on this year is, for the first time for many years, our net tuition looks as though it will come in at or above budget for the full year. The summer was extremely good. We had over 400,000 above budget by the end, in net budget by the end of the summer. There are a couple of programs that actually the MDiv, for example, has seen a dip this year because of some changes in their program structure. That put them under budget quite a lot, which hit our September figures. But we're still, at the moment, 286,000 above budget for our net tuition as of September. We expect that to climb a little bit more by December. And then January, we'll take a little bit of a dip again, and then we should climb up a little bit more. So our calculation right now is that our net tuition is where it should be. So that's gross minus discounts. So that's good. The only hits that we really have at this moment in our budget, and one is significant, well, actually both are significant, but the most significant one is, again, we put $1 million, remember, into medical benefits this year. Right? We are still behind in our medical benefits, even with that extra $1 million in this year. Right now it looks as though next year we will have to put in another $1 million extra into our benefits. Okay? Right now we are over in medical benefits by 408,000, and we're 5 months into the year. So we'll see where that ends up, but our anticipation is that it probably is not going to slow down, but we will see. The other area that we were over on, or under on really, was our income for our auxiliaries. We did some work this summer to make more housing available. It looked like it was completely going to fill. Some of it was not completed before September, and so we're under in our housing. And we don't know yet if that will continue every month or if we'll be able to regain some of that. We hope we'll regain some of it, but auxiliaries were under about 180,000 for September, which will be a problem if it happens every month. So basically right now, we're looking good in tuition. Our expenses are holding well. Just those two items which could throw us off course with our budget. Our budgeted gain is aimed at 2.5 million. Last year we ended with just over 400,000, 450,000 over the zero. So in the black, which was good, but it wasn't up to budget. And this year we really want to try and push it right up to budget, but still some pressures. All right, so with that in mind, then we say, okay, so if we look at this this year, what do we do for our budget assumptions going into next year? And this is basically what we are looking at. We still need to look at a 2,500 gain. This gain is important because we must build up cash from previous years when we lost cash. Right? So this is to try and build up our total financial picture. We've been trying to do this for a few years, haven't yet really made any inroads on the loss that happened before many of us were here, but we're still trying to make up that ground with cash. All right. So 2,500 gain. Some of you may understand with this term of about contribution to overhead. We're looking at 41.75%. What that means is that in the academic area, what you give from your income to the rest of the campus is 41.75% of the income you get. That's basically what that means. How does that benchmark against other institutions? It's on the low side. It's just slightly on the low side of where you would want to be. Okay, so we're heading towards that balance. The volume is budgeted at 99% of our current enrollment. We did that this last year. We're trying to do the same again this year. The price increase is 2.75. The church subsidies are unfortunately not increasing much. As you may know, there's a lot of conversations between the World Church and the North American Church. And the World Church is not in a strong financial place right now with some of the changes. They are holding our appropriation flat, and I think we should be actually pleased that they are holding it flat. because they're dropping in many other cases. The North American division is giving us a 0.8% increase, which is better than flat. The Lake Union is giving us, and their increase to us is always based on their tithe percentage, and their tithe looks, right now we've put in 1%, it might go up a little bit higher, and so we get that. But those are not big figures when it comes to our total budget. We are with our changes and our discounts, because we're moving out of one phase with our APS and not increasing that at this point. We are looking at a 0% change in discount rates in our budget going forward. New revenue right now, we're not putting in a lot. We put in 250,000 for some things that we think are sure, certain income. And then we have a number of additional expenses. I'm just going to pick out a few of these. Some of them, there's a little bit of detail here you don't really need. But compensation right now, well, there's two areas. First of all, the benefit increase will be 1.196, basically 1.2 million increase in benefits, 1 million of that going into medical. Okay, to try again to make sure what we are putting into the medical is really meeting the costs going out. And 1.5%, that means on top of the benefits, another 1.5% in compensation. We have some costs attached to the GC session, some money for general operating. I think it's targeted about 1% of general operating. That hits things like software increases and electricity increases, those types of things. And then a few small shifts here and there. Okay. So that leaves us with, in the academic, so we also remember had our early retirements. That will give us about 250,000 when all the adjustments are made. Some people being replaced, some not being replaced, some replaced at a lower level. The net to us next year benefit will be 250,000, okay? That 250,000 will help us with the money we still need to find, which is 750,000 in total in all of the academic areas and 400,000 in the non-academic areas. And then we have a balanced budget. That's what the board voted. So that's where we are, and that's the frame with which we will be going into our budget cycle for this coming year. After that, we had a few very short reports. President's Council report. They, of course, are very supportive of us, and they thanked everyone for the support getting the Wellness Center finished. And they announced and invited everyone to join us for our President's Council retreat, which actually will be in the Wellness Center in the middle of November, a weekend. And so we're looking forward to that. And this is a group that really, really is very helpful and supportive to us on many fronts. We then had the governance report. That was a lot of boring things. Bylaw changes. We have our constituency coming up in about 18 months. So we had to look at our bylaws. We made a few changes in the way we can do votes, in the way a few committees are structured, all of those kind of things. If you're really interested in that, I'll happily give you and show you copies of all of it. But I'm not going to go through all those details here. We also made some recommended changes to our board manual, which is the way we operate as a board. There was pushback on one or two of those. We're going to go back and review that with some of our board committees and approval of some others. And that was really about the parameters of the things the board expects of us as a university. Again, a little bit technical. Happy to share with you if you want to know more. The Student Experience and Faith Development Report came next, and that is usually, and it was again today, was just how wonderful everyone is and how wonderful the students are, and really looking at some of the good things that have been happening in the student life area to support students. And the Academic Programs and Education Services report only had one item they brought this time. I know they discussed a whole lot more, but the item was the closure of the BS in Construction Management. And that was basically it. We had some corporation meetings, which basically means you open a meeting, you vote the members, you close a meeting. And we did that for the Andrews Broadcasting Corporation, the Center for Youth Evangelism, the University Retirement Center, and Griggs University membership. And that was it. And that was the end of the meeting. It was a good meeting in the sense there was a lot of good discussion. Again, a strong feeling that we have a board who is really trying to walk with us, not act against us in any way. And I think from that point of view, there's a lot of positive comments from them about the board and about what is happening. Anybody like to ask me any questions? Larry.
You made the comment the budget gave us is 2,500, should be 2.5 million.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, sorry, I just left a few zeros off, but I think it's kind of probably quite an important few zeros. There's a good reason for you to come back to all our meetings, Larry. All right, yes, the budgeted gain is 2.5 million, and the budgeted gain for next year is 2.5 million. All right, or needs to be 2.5 million. Any other questions? Yes?
Just one. When we look at 1.5 million or 1 million increase in the benefits, what percentage increase is it?
In the benefits, I think we are around 6%. That's a 6% increase. I was going to say 15%. It's more for medical. So it's about a 15% increase in medical. And so if you think about it, this year we put it up at about 15%. And next year we're putting it up about 15%. So, that's 30% increase in the last 2 years. And again, I just want to reiterate, this is nobody's fault. This is just where we are. We were holding our medical costs down for a couple of years, and then they suddenly, in a sense, we bucked the trend because the trend was everyone was going up 7% a year. But we've suddenly bumped up a lot in the last couple of years. Okay, anybody else? All right. Sorry, you're blocked by the sun that's shining at me. Yes, Kathy.
I was talking with a friend of mine, he's in Southern, and he said, I don't know how to word it, but it's a higher education thing, and he said that the state of Tennessee has granted free tuition for the first 2 years of college, which has really hit them. Now they're looking at 4 years of free public tuition.
Yes.
Is that in Michigan at all?
Detroit. Wayne State apparently has just voted free tuition for anyone who comes from Detroit. Sorry?
Who pays for that?
Yep. I mean, Kalamazoo has a different process. Kalamazoo, actually, we can gain from Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo has a process called the Kalamazoo Promise, and that will pay any student to go to any university in Michigan, including us, right? It doesn't pay for everything. They pay us the same as if the student went to a public university. But the understanding is that if we accept that, we match the balance. So that's how that one works. We don't have too many students because in order to get the Kalamazoo Promise, you must come from within the bounds of Kalamazoo, and you must have gone to the public school for up to 12 years. Depending on how many years you have gone, depends on how much money they will give you. But that is another model out there. So yes, and I think that what is happening in Tennessee, it's in New York. We did last year see a drop in our students from New York, and it's very hard to say this equals this, but they have a 4-year free college as well. And because we draw nationally in so many ways, it does, wherever it happens, actually impacts us to some degree. Is it Tony?
Yes. Just going back
I don't think Darcy's not here, I don't think. And it would be good for him to share with you at some other general meetings a little bit more. He's been really engaged in looking at different models and trying to see if we're getting the best deal. And is there anything out there that's better than this? So far, nothing is really coming back. So if we move out of the self-insured into a fixed plan, what that means is they tell you in advance. So the advantage is that we could go into next budget year knowing exactly how much we were going to pay. Okay, that's a good thing. So we can set our budget and we're not going to be blown out of the water during the year because of the change in it. However, the figures for that fixed is actually more than we're paying now. So the question is, do we want to lessen our risk of knowing where we're going, but end up paying higher in the first place, and can we afford to move up to that higher level? So that's the question. Now, with the increases we're making, is there a point at which we will be up there? I don't know, because also the fixed plan will look at your current payments to decide what they should fix you at, right? And then say we went into next year and our fixed plan was 8 million. But actually, they looked at us and what we were performing and what it was costing them, and really the costs were more than 8 million. The following year, they're going to bump it up, right? So you're still going to see bumps. The only advantage is you know the bump in advance for budgeting. I think that's about right. But Darcy is very, very actively looking at all the options to see what we can do. The conversation around the table at Finance Committee from others who were there, who are running companies, including hospitals, was that they're seeing the same problem. I mean, it's not just in higher education. Healthcare throughout the country is just seeing these dramatic increases in the costs of insurance premiums.
So at our current numbers right now, looking at our numbers now, it's still less expensive to be self-insured.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I like that there is a push for 4-year degree programs into community colleges in Michigan.
Yes.
So what plans are we having to
Counteract that. Okay, so we're part of Michigan Independent Colleges and Universities. Okay, so we're also part of another group called Michigan Colleges Alliance. And they're both very, very important to us. The first one, MCA, is a group that largely works with business and connects us with manufacturing and also connects us in projects that operate between campuses. So, for example, when our engineering students go out to the striking competition, they're doing that through our connections through MCA, okay? So that's one. But the other group, MICU, is the one that works for us in the government. So they are in Lansing. We have a representative who sits on the floor that represents all of the independent colleges and universities in Michigan. They do an excellent job with it for us, and they have presented arguments so far that have stalled this movement of 4-year degrees into community colleges. One of the arguments they've made is that we are all, well, I can't think of the exact word, but in our taxes, we pay for our community colleges, right? There's a millage cost that comes in, right? But that is not happen for 4-year. 4-year universities, the money comes through the state. So they're saying, well, you can't get the millage if you go to 4 years, because that's actually illegal at the current time. So they're arguing all of those kinds of things. Will it eventually happen? I don't know. I think there's also an argument about quality. The dropout rates in community colleges are very, very, very high. And so from the point of view of actual success, and that's another big argument that's being made. The other thing that's going on right now that you may not be aware of is that the governor, we have about 100 of our students right now who are getting money from the Michigan grant, Michigan tuition grant. Right now, that is low compared with some of our institutions because we have students from all over the country. But it's worth about $200,000 to those students. And the governor raised the amount of money going towards the tuition grant, which would have given everyone up to $2,400. But then, at the final moment, vetoed it. Any money. So right now, there's a big hole there. The Michigan tuition grant has not been approved yet within the current budget. Now, I've spoken to our representative, who happens to be a graduate from Andrews University, by the way, Education Department, so he really loves us. And he and many of the others have put a bill to reinstitute it. And he said, which is what we're also hearing from our people at Lansing, that it's a total political move. To kind of, the governor is trying to get some things she wants, and so she's bartering by holding back some things that other people want. And it's kind of like, I'll give this back to you as long as you give me what I want. That's kind of what's going on right now. There is such a groundswell of reaction against the cutting of the Michigan tuition grant that we think it will come back. If not, it will hit both us and the students, because we will pick up some of that, depending on the economics of each student. So we really hope it does. For some of the other campuses in Michigan, it's about $1 million worth. So it is another big issue that's out there that we're dealing with it right now. But yes, our representative in Michigan really does do a great job on our behalf. All right. Any other questions? All right. I think that is it. Thank you all very, very much for coming, and I'm going to ask Kriston to come up and give us a final closing prayer.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for the work that we do here at this university for employees, our faculty, for our students. We thank you for the way in which you have led, and we are confident that in the future you're going to be with us, and because of your guidance, we'll be successful as well. Bless us as we go on our merry way this evening, and give us your presence and your blessings. In Christ's name, amen.